Oh, that's weird. Hey, what's up, everybody? You are watching On the Town. I'm your host, Tanya. Thank you so much for watching and being back with us again this week. So many have served their country for the sake of our freedom. We salute all who have been in service, who have done any kind of service, police service, military. We appreciate you. But there are some who have come home facing health and mental issues. So today's guest decided that he'd be the change that he wanted to see. So he has 20 years as he's now retired police officer and detective, 23 commendations, wow, 4 medals of valor, Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year, woohoo. He is a surf warrior who now helps others with surf therapy for PTSD. He is the author of Riding One More Wave, as you can see there on the top, a true story of a police officer in Oakland, California, during the 1980s to the 1990s, who used surf therapy for PTSD. Here to share his new book with us, please welcome Bradley Carpenter. Hi.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like the crowd.
Thank you so much for coming and joining us. We know you're all the way, what did you say, DC?
Washington State.
Washington State, okay. Okay, well, thank you. We appreciate you. Let's see, somebody's on here already. Hey, okay, somebody's already here. Thank you. So that 20 years, wow, a lot. So I'm going to go through each as a layer, I guess, because there's so many elements here that you have so many great pieces. I'll go through all of them if I can. Okay, so what inspired you first to become a police officer? Can you share like a major moment from your early career that shaped your approach to law enforcement?
Yeah, well, it was kind of accidental. I never really wanted to be a police officer. In fact, in high school, I got chased by too many and got too many tickets. Wasn't really fond of police officers back then. When I graduated from college, though, I went into teaching. I was teaching high school in California. Mm-hmm. At the wrong time, they laid off over 10,000 teachers over a 18-month period because of some property rollbacks and such. So I looked to go civil service, and a friend was taking the exam for the Oakland Police Department. I drove him over and decided just for the heck of it, I'd take the test. And of course, I took the test and got accepted. He didn't. So
wow, really?
It was one of those just accidents that happened. And then I had to go back to my wife, who I'd been married to for a couple of years, and say, your husband, who was a high school teacher, is now a cop. And so that was a long conversation.
Wow. That's very interesting after all that. With 23 commendations, 4 medals of valor, can you tell us about a specific incident that you believe truly exemplifies your dedication to your role as a police officer? Because it's clear.
Well, yeah, I think I need to start sort of more at the beginning, where it was such a change of life for me. Mm-hmm. As you can tell, I'm a white guy. And I don't want to say I grew up entitled, but I was pretty close to growing up entitled. My family unit was pretty solid. Parents married for just shy of 70 years before my dad died.
Wow.
We moved around a bit. He was in the military, but I never had any food worries or housing difficulties or challenges. Mm-hmm. I grew up with 3 older sisters, so I never had a fist fight until I was a cop because my sisters ruled the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And, my college was paid for. I was lucky to get a athletic scholarship, so I had no debt, no worries, and no problems. And all of a sudden, I'm now a police officer in East Oakland, which is, 95% black at that time.
Yeah, Oakland.
And the year I started, actually, the San Francisco Chronicle did a study where they said that a black man between the ages of 18 and 20 had a better chance of survival in Vietnam during the height of the Tet Offensive than he did in a weekend in Oakland.
Wow.
Violence was just so real in the 80s and the 90s that it was such a change of pace for this somewhat middle-class entitled white kid to drop into that and then try to identify, help, assist, blend, whatever you want to do that. So there were some challenges, and it was, I was extremely frustrated and took over one of the beats that a cop had left because he couldn't deal with the violence, and I'm not sure I could deal with the violence either.
Right.
But it was, so there were some means that I had to learn to adapt into an entirely different environment than I had ever seen in my life before.
Wow. Well, you know what's funny, and that wasn't one of my questions, but when you say that, I think of when I think of PTSD, I also think of neighborhoods like that and those kids that are acting the way they're acting. That's also symptomatic of trauma and stuff going on. So you can have trauma from war, right? But I believe you also have trauma from being the victim of war, going to war, and having come from, let's say they came from your background, right? Good family.
No, I mean,
and then you go to this situation where you're actually having to kill someone, and it may look innocent to me on the outside, but you know the real deal. Now that's another form of PTSD, but also there's kids on the street doing crazy things who didn't process it at all, and that's another symptom of it to me.
It's real. Those young black children in East Oakland in that time frame, they didn't have dreams of growing up to be an athlete or a fireman or a doctor. They just had dreams of wanting to grow up.
Right, exactly, to be alive, exactly. And I know I've been in Cali. I was shot at in Cali just being on someone's porch. Yeah. So I understand. I can't imagine if I had to do that every day. I just can't. I'd be freaking out. So I get it. So what your background in law enforcement that exposed you to a lot of high stress situations, especially in Oakland. My God, Compton, Oakland, all that's crazy. How did you personally cope with the psychological toll of that job? And what role did therapy play in the healing process, or you hadn't got there yet?
Well, I hadn't got there at that point, but one of the things I've learned is that everybody in life will experience 2 to 3 traumatic events in their lifetime.
Yes, absolutely.
But they say that a police officer in the city the size of Oakland over a 10-year period will experience 260 traumatic events. Wow. And if you can look at that and go like, good grief, there better be some serious coping skills or we're going to have a mess. And unfortunately, that's one of the reasons writing the book and the talks I give and the meetings I have is trying to teach the coping skills that I learned and see if that might help others.
Tell us a little bit about the book because, I know you befriended an officer and that's how the process starts. But I'll also ask you another question, a sidebar on that in relation to policing. My sister's dad was an officer, detective, actually. And so it's a very interesting field to me. Always has been. Yeah. Always. Mm-hmm. But go ahead. Tell us about the book so that way people know why they need to go get it.
Well, the stories are real, but however, we changed the names just to kind of protect the guilty. It deals with the stories. We lost 9 police officers during my tenure there that were killed in the line of duty. And
that's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, and I tried to go back and look, and it was quite a few, and but also additionally between those 9 police officers were killed, we had some 38 that were retired because of medical issues that they received. And I'm not even sure how many was suicide, just because of the lack of the coping skills.
Right.
That aren't taught. They are not taught. And it's supposed to be just suck it up, buttercup.
Do you think they're doing it now, though?
I think it's come a long ways, and they're trying. And there's a lot of guys like me now who are being invited back to some of the law enforcement academies and are speaking to them. And I've been able to speak to 4 or 5 different police departments. And, when you get a little bit older, you wish you can go back and do a few things different, and hopefully some of them listen, but some of them recognize that, these are some of the coping skills that help.
Right, right. Well, because I'm just thinking, and I know you can't speak for everybody, but when I think of policing today compared to when I was younger, like I knew all the officers' names. I knew they knew your parents, and they would tell on you if you were doing something bad. Like,
Right.
and you as a kid, you felt obligated to do the right thing usually because you don't want nobody you don't get the spanking later, right?
Mhm.
So those things were elements back then. Now a lot of, not all, but a lot of kids, they don't have that, I'll call it patriotic loyalty to their mom or dad, saying, oh my God, my grandma or my mom, dad, somebody's going to get me somebody's going to check me. No, they don't have that. So without that, and then they don't have respect for the officers because of the few that don't do what they're supposed to do. It ties into everyone, unfortunately. How do, do you think, see, I think this stuff is good because, like you said, someone coming in from, well, I don't know if you know the area, Long Island to police in Bed-Stuy. For you, I'll say you're out in DC. Okay, so we can go from Compton, from Malibu Beach. No, that's not quite. What do you call it? Santa Barbara, right? It's like, okay, so how does that person now know how to deal with someone who's calling them the MF word and threatening them, and you're in the position of authority? So now it's your ego's involved, right? And their ego's involved. Now what do we do? So, because that could be a very bad situation, depending on what training the officers had. He would know how to talk someone down. Because I've had clients I've had to talk down, that weren't very happy with my advice I was giving them. So I understand that element of it, but I know it's not quite the same as you would be in a line of duty, because that's a life or death situation sometimes, and you have to make the call, and it ain't always good, but it's what you thought was best for yourself, Yeah, I don't know. It's hard.
No, trust has to be built, and that's one of the things that I try to. You have to have trust, and we've lost so much trust between it, where officers are so on edge with the whole. I mean, back in my day, you could not videotape me unless you had a whole lot of extension cord and you're running around with a big camcorder on your shoulder.
Right.
But the immediacy of social media, and if something happened 5 minutes ago, it's spread around the world. So that's a big change, but trust has to be built. And the way I started with my trust was, I'm a frustrated basketball player. I thought I could have been a college player, but I was just a semi-good high school player.
Okay.
And Oakland, the streets of Oakland are just known for some of the best basketball around the world.
Yes.
Names like Gary Payton, Jason Kidd, great Hall of Fame players came from Oakland, the streets. And there's dozens of players better who just couldn't make it out of high school.
Right.
So one of the things I did was, on my days off, I would go back out to my beat to Sunnyside Park, which is known for street basketball, and finally got them to allow me to play in one game. And prove myself. And then we started playing, and a couple of my friends who thought I was crazy came out to kind of watch my back for a while. And then we ended up, after a few months, forming a Oakland Police basketball team that went out there on our days off on a Saturday afternoon, and we would play 4 or 5 hours of basketball. And the first few games were testy. I think everybody, even on my team, wanted to block my shot. And I got knocked down more than once, but you can't call fouls. So it was some rough games, but that was probably how I edged into getting some trust, as far as them recognizing I'm spending my off time out there playing basketball with the kids.
Right.
And it was that was one step into what I felt was the right direction.
Yeah, no, that absolutely. I mean, and that's the element that's missing that I can think of, is like my officers where I live. I'm lucky. The Bedford area we're lucky so far. Knock on wood. I can honestly say we've never had any situation that I know of yet so far. But I went to school with a lot of guys, so there's already trust there. You know what I'm saying? And if I didn't know them, it was their dad or whoever. It's like a different thing. But I know there's places it isn't, and that is something that they don't do anymore, is engage with the community. And that's a big thing for me. I mean, I think that's major, because right away who the jerks are going to be, because they ain't coming.
Right.
And, right away, who's the hopefuls that we could probably grab and do something with, and I think that's brilliant. And it does, if it was me on the other side, I'd be saying, wow, they're taking their time off to come here and play. It's just it's a different look, and I love it. Can you explain the surf therapy? Like, when did you introduce that, or when did you know about that? Because you say something in your book about your dad and how he used to take you to the water or something to that effect.
And
Tell us about that.
obviously, I didn't realize that until many, many years later. But my father served in World War II, all of the fighting all across Europe, and then he served in Korea.
Wow.
He was actually shot in World War II. Then he was shot in Korea. Then he did 2 tours in Vietnam.
Wow.
So the man is, he is in the Hall of Fame now for Fort Benning in the Army. But he never showed the effects of the stress. But what I realized later is every time we were living on the East Coast or we were driving back to see my grandparents in Washington State, we would stop in motels and we'd hit the pool, we'd hit the lake. With my dad, I've been on every ocean and every beach. I didn't realize that at the time, but that was also part of his surf therapy. And I think I integrated it later in my life when I was a Oakland cop and on the younger side. Half Moon Bay is a surfer's paradise about 40 minutes south of us. And anytime I would just throw my old dog in the Jeep and we would run down to Half Moon Bay and stay in the water. And that's where I had my talks with God and argued and went back and forth, but it was always in the water that I found my peace. And I would come home and then it'd be like 4 or 5 nights away from the water. And I, like many, would have what they call night sweats, where you didn't realize it, but you're basically soaking the sheets with sweat. And my wife at the time, great woman, she passed away some 15 years ago, but she understood. I think she understood, or she was tired of changing the sheets. But I came home one night and she had taken our water fountain that was in the backyard, one of these huge outdoor water fountains, emptied it, drug it into the bedroom, filled it back up, and turned it on. And, I came in the house and thought a water pipe had broken. But before, we hadn't even heard the term, but the term is acoustic camouflage.
Right.
And we hadn't even, I didn't even know that was a term, but that was the best night of sleep I had that night. She recognized that there was something with me in the ocean, and she knew that the water fountain might heal. And that acoustic camouflage was kind of the start of realizing that I need to be close to the surf, the water, nature to find my peace.
Wow. That's amazing that she knew that and could figure that out. One of my favorite things to go to sleep to is the chakra healing, where the water sound the water. Or the ocean. I'm a water person myself. So that's brilliant that she figured out way back then. That's amazing.
And, and there's people need to understand the difference of, there's white noise, just turning on a fan or doing something like that, but that's not a healing characteristic. You need to have some sort of acoustic camouflage that helps you live, helps you, your positive dreams come in, your positive dopamine come in,
Yes, because it works on your chakras and your energy. So if you have just white noise, that's just to drown something out. That's like, oh, for me, it's like, oh, that's what I feel like, the white noise. Versus the ocean, it's like peace, everything. It's a whole different vibe. A white noise compared to listening to an ocean, or even the sound of rain is better than white. But so your surf therapy, can you explain how it works and why you believe this effective for those suffering with PTSD, officers and veterans? Why is it so effective?
It's just getting them out there. They can feel the water that's rushing between them and the board as you're just paddling out, and it just kind of releases, and it feels like it just washes away sin, guilt, shame. It just washes it away and lets you kind of reset, focus, relax. You just can't help if you're looking towards the horizon and you're looking out as you paddle out, I mean, if you don't see God in that, I'm going to talk to you about it. It's just you can just let everything go.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, like, did you guys how did you research that or find evidence to support the effectiveness of search therapy?
Well, I think it's just kind of been in the last 4 or 5 years that there's been 3 or 4 groups that now have jumped up with that, and it just getting out in nature just by itself, is positive. Obviously, not everybody can get to the ocean because you're living in the middle of the country.
Right.
Even walks along the path or just getting a dog can release the positive dopamines. It's just, how do you find your release? And that's the touch point, is how do you find your release?
That's the key component. So, yeah. I'm trying to think. So how do you address like safety and like emotional resilience, within the session? So if someone's, like maybe someone's never been in the water or scared of the water.
Well, we never really go too terribly deep, and everybody who's out there has also been through a certified lifeguard thing where we know how to spin you around, at least pull you back by your hair.
Right.
So it's not going to be terribly serious, but it's
that's amazing.
The things we're dealing with are terribly serious. We're talking about a lot of with suicide and such, and the thing about suicide is nobody really wants to die. They just don't know how to live. Yeah, so it's kind of opening that door of, this is how we live, this is how we do it. Here's a safety plan. If you're talking safety plans of, if you feel that urge, this is who you call, this is what you say. And if you're on the other end, dang, make sure you're listening. And if you see a text that you think is suspicious, follow up on it really quick. Yeah, so we do make sure that there's safety plans for those type of situations, because suicide's real.
It is very real, and it's so prevalent today. It's crazy. I know 2 people last month. So one was only 14. So it's very it's a very serious thing. But I love sessions like this because whatever you say, I'm sure it could be applied to anyone suffering any of those elements.
Right.
PTSD, depression, all of it. So I appreciate you. What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced while working as, well, I was going to say while doing this work, but also I wanted to know when you was a detective in Oakland, and how does it help? Has any of that helped for now for the self-therapy?
Most of those challenges I try to put in boxes and just said, okay, that one's closed, put that one off. Because as the book will depict, and the book was somewhat cathartic, or possibly writing them down, being able to put those stories into the book, and then sealing that chapter and not revisiting it as often as I would like. But there was trauma, and it's trying to get past all that.
Right. Is the gentleman still alive that you wrote the book in reference to, their officer?
Well, yes, that was my. I can't talk in the third person, but I can write in the first person. So the book is actually my book.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense. All right. So then, Riding One More Wave. What do you want readers to take away from the book?
Hopefully that I hope that there's a lot of hope. There's the story, so there's a lot of understanding from the law enforcement side. I've gotten a lot of great positive feedback from those in law enforcement who have read it and have lived it, but didn't realize that some of these coping skills can be utilized.
Definitely, and still can be utilized, especially today for everybody.
Yeah.
So you're, getting the Commerce Citizen of the Year award. That means you engage a lot in community. How has that helped you to be able to identify various people that may need this surf therapy?
I think so. Yeah, labels and titles do give you credibility. That's about all. So I think that helped with the credibility of getting into different groups to speak and to talk.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so in your book, how do you use surfing as a metaphor for both the challenges and the triumphs faced by those dealing with the trauma?
Well, it's, what is the quote? I think, where was that quote? It's basically trying to think of who author of the quote is, learn to ride the wave that you were given.
Right.
All of a sudden, the name of that's not my quote, but the name of the guy who made that escapes me right now. And I think that's the most important thing is, we're all facing a wave and you just got to learn to ride that wave that you were given.
That is so powerful and so true. What advice would you give to current law officers who might be watching or professionals experiencing PTSD, mental health struggles, especially in those fields that are very high stress?
Yeah. And I think it's just recognizing, as I first said, that, the traumatic events, you can witness 10 or 12 a day. And give space, give grace, have understanding, and try to get them to communicate and talk. I think one thing that you learn quickly in law enforcement and in the military is that in the blink of an eye, life can change. Just totally.
I know. That's the thing.
So you need to learn to live. You need to learn to live every day. The fact that, don't hold a grudge. You're not going to get that chance to say what you wanted to say if you wait too long, because when they say that everyone who died last night had some really great plans for today, and don't waste those plans.
Well, I always say you have to learn to live on life terms too, because we often put all these things around it, and it's like some things are just simple, and one is there's certain things in life that will happen, and we just have to learn to deal with them and keep moving. Don't let it stop us, because then you're not really living if you let it stop you, right? What I'm trying to think. Surf therapy. When you set up, now, are you always in a community that has an ocean or a beach or lake or something, or you specifically look for those areas and then decide?
I prefer that, but mostly it seems like I'm talking to people in coffee shops. So, you don't have to be next to the beach when you're having a good conversation that's, going long and going deep. I prefer the ocean, but actually it doesn't happen as much as I would like. It's more a coffee shop and one-on-one environments, or speaking in front of academy class or such.
Wow. Well, that's usually, I always say people show up in people places, then you never know where that's at. It could be, or I say, if you believe in God, God shows up in all places. So, and that's in the work that you do and the work that we do to help others. That's not shocking. So, for the future, with your experience in surf therapy and writing, what are your future plans for advocating for mental health awareness? And do you have any upcoming projects or initiatives you would like to share with us?
I'd like to get, I've been able to meet with quite a few chiefs and sheriffs in the state, and I'd like to speak in front of more of their groups. And I think this coming year, I'm going to be able to speak at several more academies that are getting close to graduation. I remember my days of somebody mentioned, well, how do you handle stress? And, you're talking to a bunch of 21, 22-year-old kids, and you're going like, well, we go to the pool hall, we drink beer. That's how we handle stress. So I think coming up with some different positive interactions and reminding them to connect with the community, connect with your family, your faith, and
Yes.
keep it together.
Your faith. Wow. Yeah. The spirituality. You think that's a big part of healing?
Oh,
Especially.
I think it's the foundation.
I do too. I definitely do. Some people have lost that, but I'm like, you do you, but I'm definitely going to be on the spiritual side because there's no way I could have made it without it, honestly, so I agree. What else? I was going to ask you something else about the book. So who did the cover? I love the cover. Who did the cover?
Let me grab that.
You guys? Yeah, I have it up there, a little thumbnail, very little one.
Yeah.
I have a big one.
Great gal. It was actually just kind of a one deal. I said, I'd like a surfing in the background and 3 cops in the front. And,
I have this. See, look.
Yeah. So she came up and, no, that's not me surfing in the background, or no, that's
not. I was going to ask. Nice cover, guys.
I'd like to. Yeah. Her name is Nicole Gabriel. And
Nicole Gabriel?
Yeah, she's out of Michigan, and she did the cover and the I thought she did a great job.
Absolutely fabulous. It definitely caught my interest when I saw that beautiful blue, but that's awesome that you took time to, write something for people suffering. Have you had any great, positive feedback from someone who read it and called you or emailed you and said, hey, thank you so much for saving my life?
I have, and one of the interesting things was I wrote this in a bubble, as far as I didn't really tell a lot of people I was writing it. Okay. And I did that by design. I didn't want to talk to all the guys I had worked with before. Yeah, I was almost, I don't want to say embarrassed, but kind of close to that. Like, what if this turned out really bad? Maybe, I don't know.
Right.
But then I had quite a few of them. I did a book launch party up here in Washington State, and I had quite a few of them make the trip up from Northern California to the book launch party. Wow. And by then, they had all had an advanced copy and read it, and were really, really encouraging and really great. And now I kind of wish I had. Maybe because, of course, when you get together with a bunch of old cops, the stories come out, and I was going like, oh, I forgot that one. That could have been a good chapter. So next time, I think I'll involve more people in the journey.
Okay. And do you think you'll do a follow-up part 2? Like, is there things you discovered you're like,
there may be.
Okay. It's probably been a nice challenge. But writing is the best way because you can reach so many people that way. Right. It's a great tool, and I appreciate that you took the time to write it. Do you normally write books, or this just hits you different?
Well, I'd like to say I'm a writer, as far as I do a lot of poem and poetry and short stories and such, but this was the first actual publication.
Wow, that's amazing. And where can we get it?
I prefer on my website.
Right here.
WriteOneMoreWave.com.
Yeah, there it is, guys. WriteOneMoreWave.com.
Amazon has been great for me, but Amazon typically pays authors in my category about every 18 months or so.
Right.
So if you buy a book on Amazon, it might be 2 years before I get paid for it.
Yeah, no, I know. And I had someone that did a book for once, and they thought that I was holding the money. I was like, you're not getting any money because I didn't get any money for you yet because they didn't have an account. So I did it for them. And I wish they were listening because then they know I'm telling you the truth. Like,
yeah, no, I had no realizations until it was published that wait, what? They hold the money for up to 2 years?
Yeah, they can hold it a while. And I didn't learn that till later, but yeah. But anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to come and see us. And I guess I'm going to play a video before we go because, do you have anything you want to share with us? Any social handles you want people to follow you on?
Well, I'm, Brad Carpenter on Facebook, but WritingOneMoreWave.com is the website. So you can also find out different ways to contact me.
Okay. So, and also you guys know, you can always inbox me for any information, where to get the book, any of that, that, speaking engagement, whatever you need. I'm always around. But thank you so much for taking the time to come. Guys, I was trying to see if you had any questions. Hi, Norma. I see you out there. Hey, T. Joseph, I don't see you today. I see Jen. Hey, Jen. What's up? But thank you so much for taking time. I hope you share the video. Somebody's life needs to be saved or changed. And this book is definitely going to help some people. So please make sure you share it. A lot of people are going through PTSD. But we specifically want to take care of our soldiers, our police, military. We want to take care of those people because they took care of us when we needed it. So that's why this is of special interest. Okay. So don't forget. And guys, I think I'm going to leave you with the music video. Brad, we're going to hang out 1 minute and I'll get right back to you. Ready? Let's see what we're going to have here. So let's do it's just a song. Okay, ready? And I'm going to put us off screen for a second. 1 sec.
My baby's kinda crazy, my life's kinda hazy. He's always down to ride till the end. Oh, his heart's a little heavy, drinks beer, drives a Chevy. He's always down to ride till the end. Oh, just tell me when you want it, I got it. Oh, just tell me when you need it, I have it. Oh,